I spend my life speaking to the advertising industrial complex. So those are media, advertising, communications and technical kind of businesses, tech software kind of businesses. And for tonight's discussion, WPP will represent that space. Do we all know who WPP is? Yes, no? Are we getting no's? Put your hands up if you don't know. Nobody. So WPP is the single biggest advertising conglomerate in the world. Okay. Unfortunately, it's actually Wire Plastic and Products is the name. That's the registered company. But they own everything. They own Wonderman, Aqua, Ogilvy, like all the guys all over the world. We'll get into the size of their business now. But I want you to understand for tonight's discussion, WPP equals advertising. Okay. So tonight we're going to talk about the 4 threats that are going to threaten the advertising space, in my opinion. We're not going to spend too much on the first 3 because of the complexity of the talk and who the audience is. But the 4th one is the one we're going to spend most of the time on tonight. So the first threat are consultants. McKinsey & Co., Bain & Co., KPMG, Accenture, all the other consultancies which are threatening the advertising agency. So the first thing is the consultants are and have been and are very aggressively buying agencies, particular creative and digital agencies. Okay, so the first reason I want to know is that why are they buying agencies? These are the guys that help businesses run their businesses better. They've traditionally stayed out of the marketing space. So to answer the question is, all the money spent on tech used to go to the CTO, the technical officer within the corporate. And those guys used to speak to all the consultants. But over the last couple of years, with the advent of digital marketing and digital agencies and software businesses, all the money is now going to the marketing officer, a large chunk. So the money has moved from the CTO to the CMO, the chief marketing officer within corporates. And the consultants are losing income to these new agencies. So they're buying them. Okay. So they're chasing revenue, number one. Number two, they've traditionally spoken to the big decision makers in the business, not the marketing departments. And that's where the big money is. But they've dried that up now. They can't get more money out of the big corporates. So they're looking for the next revenue stream. The consultancies used to dictate what the strategy of the business was, which would influence the marketing strategy and then influence the marketing agencies. So they're going after that now. They're going after the entire stream of where they can get money. Let's go back to WPP. So WPP globally, 205,000 employees, roughly. Accenture, which is a typical consultancy, has 435,000 employees globally, twice the size. In terms of revenue, WPP did 14.3 billion last year dollars, where Accenture did 24.9. Again, double the revenue, twice the size. Bear in mind, WPP is the single biggest group in the world. WPP net income, that's their profit, 1.5 billion, Accenture 3.4, almost 3 times the size. In terms of the number of consultancies out there, there are quite a few. But what's important to point out in terms of the previous slides is that Accenture is only the 6th biggest of them. So now I'm comparing the 6th biggest is twice the size of the biggest advertising complex in the world. They are much, much bigger. Now the other thing which you've got to bear in mind is that the consultants speak to the brain of the business, where agencies speak to the heart. Now, there are 2 parts that I want to discuss around this. The first thing is that you guys are sitting in agencies or freelance space or in the creative industry. What is the most expensive hourly rate that you can charge your clients? So who's sitting in agency here?
By the way.
Students.
There's students here as well.
Okay, and students. Yeah. Who's sitting in agency here? Okay. How much can you charge your clients for the most expensive thing you can charge your clients per hour? What do you reckon that is? $1,000? Maybe 1,200 Rand an hour? Okay, so those are the kind of prices you're probably starting at 250 up to somewhere around 1,000, 1,200 Rand an hour. Locally, guys like Bain and Consulting, charge up to 8,500 Rand an hour. So the first thing is they are twice the size of advertising businesses and they charge 6-7 times more per hour for what they do. They're a way smarter organization than advertising businesses are. The other problem is that consultants can buy creative, but creative cannot buy consultants. Agencies do not know how to move into the business consulting space, but business consultants can very quickly move into the agency space. That's one of the biggest problems. So agencies are under threat by consultancies because they're bigger, smarter, have way more money, and are deliberately going after their piece of the cake. The second threat is ERP and tech businesses. ERP is enterprise resourcing and planning businesses. You've probably heard of Oracle, you've probably heard of IBM. How many of you heard of SAP? Okay, it's SAP, not SAP. These are the businesses that, so jokes aside, but SAP in German means pig, and it's a German business. These are the businesses that run everything we touch. Okay, so all the big corporates, or the banks, or the retailers, or the car dealers generally run off one of these three. There's a couple of others, but they generally run the backbone, which is how we find our clients, how we build our clients, how we manage our stock, how we manage our distribution. All that software is run on one of these three. So why are they buying digital agencies? Okay, and I'll give you a really good example. So they're buying agencies at quite a rapid pace. I'm going to give you a really simple example. JIC, we all know what JIC is. Okay, now I'm going to use an example where these three companies and more, ShopRite, Macro, and Pick n Pay, all run SAP in their business. SAP runs when you swipe your card and pay at the till, right through to their warehousing, distribution, how they buy from their suppliers, everything. All right. It is the backbone of these retailers. The retailers cannot survive without running SAP. SAP know more about Macro's clients than Macro do. Okay, because when you walk into Macro and you have a Macro card or a Pick n Pay Smart Shopper card, that runs off the back of the SAP system. Okay, so the example here is that Macro, most of Macro's clients are small traders, small businesses, whether they're township or whether they're small retailers. They go in there and they buy wholesale. Macro know who their clients are. Now the example being is that to sell JIC, a digital agency or an agency, we'll put out TV ads, we'll put out radio ads, we'll do some cool social media posts, like we'll make it very sexy, okay? But what SAP are now doing is they're buying agencies because they know that Trader X buys JIC. They know that Trader X lives and works in which region nearest to which Macro. They can track how often Trader X is buying JIC. When JIC goes on special, they can SMS, email, call, all kinds of Google geotagging, advertising to that trader. So by the time the agency has woken up to go, let's make a pretty picture and put it in an ad or run a leaflet or place it, SAP know who their clients are and they can target their client with direct marketing at a pace no agency can do. This is happening already. It's happening all the time. It's happening predominantly, an example that I heard recently, is that when ShopRite Checkers have stock within a local ShopRite Checkers of bar one that's about to expire, they can now target the clients that have bought bar one in the past to go, this stuff's expiring, we'll give it to you at a discount, come in and buy it. That is way more powerful than any advertising you can possibly think of. Okay, so ERP and the software giants are going to kill agencies because they can do stuff that agencies cannot do fast enough. Make sense? The third one, my favorite, and we can speak about this for hours, is Amazon. So Amazon is not a very big player in this country, but they've landed. Okay, offices are in Cape Town. It's imminent. They're going to open up offices and distribution in this country. Do we all know what Amazon is? Okay, so Amazon is disrupting the way retail works globally. Okay, number one. Number two, the Amazon business model is not to make a profit. Hear me out. They're not here to make a profit. Jeff Bezos, the guy who runs Amazon, says, if you show me a profit, you're not spending my money fast enough. I want more distribution centers, more fulfillment centers, more trucks, more advertising. Okay? I'm not here for shareholder value, I'm here for growth. Everybody else, WPP, all about shareholder return. How much are you giving me every year? What's my dividend want? Okay? My need. Give me more money out of the business. These guys don't care about that. They just want growth. They want domination. So the first thing is they're competing on an unfair playing ground. And a really good example of this is that Amazon last year bought Whole Foods, which is a Pick n Pay top end in America, for $14 billion. It's quite a substantial amount. The day they made the announcement that they were going to buy Whole Foods, the market, in terms of all the listed businesses that they compete against, paid for their purchase in the stock price of Whole Foods, which means that all the other massive Walmart and all the competitors, their stock price on the market decreased by more than the purchase price. So they bought this based on an increase in share value. That's how powerful they are. And we're talking about $14 billion. We're talking about real money here. There's a lot of talk that Amazon's going to be the first trillion-dollar cap market business in the world, bigger than Amazon. Now, why I'm telling you this is important is that Amazon have worked out two things. They've worked out how people buy online. And what they've realized, more importantly, is that we're going to be buying online with voice. We're not going to be sitting behind a computer or a phone looking for the stuff. We're just going to go, dear Alexa, please send me JIC. Okay. Now, what's happening here and globally, and this is case study, is that they then will go to JIC, which is, I think, is SC Johnson or whoever produces it, and say to them, you're selling this to Pick n Pay for 10 Rand. Pick n Pay are selling it for 15 Rand. You're charging Pick n Pay 10 Rand because of the costs of retail space, all the people, all the distribution, all the marketing. We want it at 6 Rand. And JIC's going to go, we can't do that because Pick n Pay is our biggest client. So Amazon are going to go, well, either you give it to us at our price, or what we're going to do is we're going to bring out a JIC house brand, or we're going to go to an opposition of yours and we'll get it at a better price. And slowly but surely, we're going to erode your business. Because eventually, we're going to buy products via voice on Amazon, and I'll explain to you how that works now, in a way that we're not going to stand in queues for at Pick n Pay anymore. Now, the reality is that how much do you love JIC? How many of you love standing in a queue on a Saturday morning at Pick n Pay to buy JIC? None of us. How loyal are we to JIC as a brand? And JIC is any FMCG, fast-moving consumable brand. I'm using it as a generic. We don't really care if it's JIC or a house brand. Okay. So what Amazon have started doing is as follows. Dear Alexa, please send me JIC. And they're going to go, we haven't got stock of JIC. We have a similar house brand, Amazon house brand, at 2 Rand cheaper. Would you like to try it? Okay. And what are we going to go? Sure, we'll try it. And what happens? We stop buying JIC forever. Because Amazon's tracking our purchase history. So the next time we need a JIC, they go, oh, but he didn't buy JIC, he bought house brand, and we'll send him house brand. So Amazon is going to slowly destroy the brands, which have taken years and years and generations to build. The second thing they've done in the States is prime second box. So when I go, no, Alexa, I want JIC. I don't want your house brand because I'm loyal to the brand JIC. They go, fine, they'll send me JIC. They're also going to send me their house brand product, okay, without my permission, to my house, to my front door. They're going to send me a second box, which is empty. And if I don't want to take that product, I can put it back in that box, and at their cost, they will collect it. Now, the reality is, they send me 2 JICs, one JIC, one house brand. House brand is cheaper. Chances are I'm going to use it. And once they know I've used it, they're going to send me their replacement next time. Okay? They are now putting their product in my house. Forget about branding, forget about advertising, forget about loyalty and social media. They are putting their product in my house. I'm not loyal to JIC, to toilet paper, to Sunlight, to white soaps. I actually don't care. Okay? I don't care about dog food. I don't care about any of these things. All these FMCG, bottom-end products that we buy every day, I don't care. If they're going to make my life easier and cheaper and put a decent product in my house, I'm going to buy it. So what I'm telling you is that Amazon are going to destroy brands, okay, at the FMCG space. So all the Procter & Gamble, all the Kraft, all the Johnson & Johnson, all the Unilever stuff that we use every single day, they are going to destroy slowly, okay? Well, not that slowly, I think quite quickly. It's happening all over the world. 25% of all advertising globally comes out of that market, the FMCG market. P&G is the single biggest spender of money in the advertising space globally, and they're aligned to WPP. Okay. So Amazon are going to eat P&G. They're going to destroy their brands. And if P&G is spending all their money in advertising, Amazon is going to destroy advertising. To make matters worse, recently, and I think there's a date on that somewhere, can you read that? A few days ago, the global head of P&G has stated that he intends to cut 1.2 billion Rand in agency fees over the next 5 years. Why? If you read the purple part, it's because agencies are dysfunctional. They're very heavy. They have too many layers of account management. I'm looking at you, mister. They have account management. They have too many layers. They're too slow. They're inefficient. And the brands are tired of it. So coupled with the fact that Amazon's going to destroy Procter & Gamble, Procter & Gamble going, advertising doesn't work for us. Isn't working the way it works. We're going to kill it. Any questions at this point? Are you afraid? You should be. Okay. The fourth threat, which is the one that I want to speak the most about, which I'm very passionate about, is the freelance space, in the creative space. Any freelancers in the room? One freelance in the room. Okay. How many of you are thinking about going freelance? How many of you are thinking about starting a small business or small agency? Okay. Because fundamentally, that is a freelancer starting a business, right? So the first thing I want to tell a story about my grandfather. That's not him, but it's just for point of reference, okay? Because my mother will go, that doesn't look like my father. But the story is as follows, that in 1988, my grandfather passed away. He had worked for 30 odd years for the same kind of business, okay? And at the time of retirement, forced retirement, he was very proud of the fact that he had worked for 30 years for the same organization, okay? I want to ask you, how many of you think in your current position today, in a job that you work, that you'll be there in 30 years? None. I asked the same question of guys that own their own businesses. Who of you think you'll own your business in 30 years? None, okay? It doesn't exist. The world has changed dramatically, okay, in terms of the way we think about employment. So we talk about the gig economy, and it's made up of 4 separate pieces: service, asset, space, and platform. I'm the most interested in the service space, where we don't need a large amount of assets to produce the work. So service-based freelancers don't rely on assets to deliver the service, okay? They deliver on them. They need their mind, and generally a laptop and some decent Wi-Fi and coffee. So the important thing to know is that the service-based industry is growing at a rapid pace. So it grew from 6.2 million to 8.9 million registered people in the EU in the space of a year. The big wave that happened was the 2008 economic crisis, which put 1 in 10 people out on the street. And in Europe, most of the people are actually educated, highly educated people. So those people went, I can't get a job, I'm going to go out on my own. And that actually pushed a massive wave into the European market in terms of the UK, especially Germany and all the Nordic countries. A lot of people went into the freelance space. And that is not necessarily creative, but all kinds of freelancers. To give you some idea of the stats, and there's quite a few coming up, is that in 2016, the freelance market was bigger than the entire motor industry in the UK. That means more money flowed through the freelance market than people spent on cars. There were 1.9 million registered people, and I'll come to what this looks like now. In the UK, they have something called a public service company, which is a specific kind of company for a one-man, one-business kind of business. So because they don't know how to classify freelancers. Are you unemployed? Are you self-employed? Are you a business? What are you? So they've created public service companies. So the year before last, there were 1.9 million people who registered that kind of business. And at the time, 250,000 people said they'd do second job as a freelance. In the States, December the year before, they passed the Freelance Isn't Free Act. In New York, in particular, what they're now saying is we recognize freelancers as a real profession, and we're going to protect them under the same laws which they don't get protection when they're employed. When you're employed, you get certain rights and responsibilities, and you get certain protection. As an independent, you don't. The government stepped in and said, we're now going to look after these people. In the UK, 1 in 7 freelancers are mothers, and that's growing at a rapid pace. And we see it locally as well. A lot of guys, a lot of ladies have babies with the intention to go back to their agency, back to their business, and suddenly realize, I don't really want to do that full time. I want to be a mother, but I still need to make some cash. So they go back into the freelance market. A great example of that locally is recruitmymom.co.za. It's for professional mothers who are looking for work, but not full-time work. It's a great freelance platform. Last year, there were 123 million people registered as employed in the service industry in the States, 123 million. They reckon that 50% of that, so around 60 million people in the next couple of years are going to be registered as freelancers in the States. That's a lot of people, 60 million smart people working for themselves in the industry. One of the big mistakes people make is they think freelancers is people I'm looking at here, that they're the young crowd. They've just finished school, they've just finished Vega, they're students, they're probably under 25. When in actual fact, baby boomers, people born in their 60s, and Gen Xers, 70s and 80s, are actually the bulk of freelance globally. These are people that have got some work experience who've now gone freelance, not started with the freelance market. So the idea of them being, all cool hipsters is actually incorrect. Anyone that's in the knowledge-based or service-based space that can sell their service by the hour can be classified as a freelancer. So we did an audit and mirrors some international audits. When I say we, the business that runs my freelance platform, we'll talk about that later. Over 7,000 people were employed, and of that, 76% said they hired freelancers because they were less expensive. 46% said because they get the work done faster, and 31% because they couldn't find talent to do the work to hire permanently. The freelancers decided that 55% of the freelancers we saw that they became freelancers due to the opportunity that presented to themselves rather than necessities. They weren't forced to leave their job, they decided to actively. So more than half are going, actually, I don't want to be employed, I want to be a freelancer, versus being forced or having been retrenched, etc. A lot of the stuff we spoke to, we interviewed 64 agencies and lots of freelancers. And those are the things people say when they're employed, okay? But some of the stuff that we heard freelancers say was, I look forward to Mondays. I feel at work that I'm bursting with energy. So the exact opposite of being employed, the kind of energy they have, being a freelancer is what comes out of being a freelancer. It's important to note that we're moving out of an economy where infrastructure, buildings, people, car, all the things made money. It's now all about who has the data, who can produce data, who can produce creative. That's the future of the worldwide economy. In terms of freelancers, do we know what the Big Mac index is? The Big Mac index is a global index of how much does a McDonald's burger cost all over the world. And what it does, it gives you an indication of the living standards and costs of a country. So like South Africa, we actually have quite a cheap Big Mac compared to Europe, for argument's sake. So people can see what is the exchange rate don't mean anything to you. What is $1 equals 12 Rand? What does that mean? What can I buy with $1 versus 12 Rand? The way you can do it is going, well, $1 buys 1.5 McDonald's burgers, where 12 Rand doesn't buy a burger. So you get an idea of the indication. But the reason that's important is that that standard is being applied to freelancers globally, because the freelance market is not a local market. You can hire freelancers anywhere in the world, and freelancers can work for anyone, anywhere in the world. So what's happened traditionally is that within agencies in particular, we're looking for a designer. Who's the best designer in the room is no longer the question. It is who's the best designer globally. Suddenly the workforce is the best anywhere in the world, and the price is a global price, a dollar-based global price, not an hourly rate Rand-based price. So there are guys locally whose the entire business is based on international freelance markets. If you look at Cape Town, there's a particular client who's got 400 developers sitting in a room. All their work is done for Europe, all of it. And all those guys are freelancers. They get them in, they pay them for per piece, per project, or per sprint, but all those guys are doing work internationally. And they've just sucked all that talent out of the local economy. Why? Because we can make pounds and euro. Why should we work for Rands? Okay? So all of a sudden, we need to catch up and realize this is a global play. This is not a South African play. And if you're going to the freelance market, bear in mind that you're not trying to get work from local businesses or local only. Like, put yourself out there, get on all the platforms and get work internationally. I'm speeding through. In terms of freelancers on LinkedIn, people put freelance as their job title. Arts and culture, media, business consulting, but those are the big ones in terms of what kind of freelancers there are. So it is generally driven by arts and culture and creative. They are the first people to leave their job and start freelancing. But the business, consulting, engineering, education, lawyers, all the other bits, they're all catching up very, very quickly. So during some research, we looked at the main reasons why you'd want to work in the gig or freelance economy. As said earlier before, independence and fulfillment is a massive one. Opportunity to make more money is a massive one. But the key driver is the independence. And the thing that starts most freelancers is having one client. All you need is one client, the first client, to leave your job or to start freelancing. So as soon as there's opportunity for one client, guys often moonlight on the side, have one client and go, hang on, I can make more money in my pajamas working half the hours, and they make the leap all day long. Okay, a massive thought shift from I have a job to I have and working for clients. Less about being unemployed and more on self-employed. And understand that the greater the professional sector in the economy, the greater the opportunity to practice independently. So what that means is that the more people doing it, the more the opportunity exists. And we'll get to another slide shortly where I can show you what that looks like. But ultimately, the market is a growing market. There was a great study done on the state of global youth entrepreneurship through the EU, UAE, which is like Dubai, Israel, and the Middle East, and South Africa in particular. And they interviewed people under the age of 25 on the propensity to leave their job to go and freelance. 17% of people under the age of 25 in the EU are happy to leave to go freelance. Why? They have great job security, they have great personal insurance, they have great kinds of retirement funds, all those things are built in. It's a very safe place to get a job. Less so in the UAE. 60% of these people in South Africa said, I'm leaving my job tomorrow to go freelance. Why? We have a very entrepreneurial spirit in this country. We have very, very, very high unemployment, which means that we've got to make a plan. If we haven't got a job, we're going to go into our own business. So there's a high propensity in this country to go into the freelance space. And the word entrepreneur from Latin directly means risk taker. So we are a bunch of risk takers in this country, okay? We all know we are. We all believe one day we're going to own our own business. That doesn't exist in the rest of the world. So there's a massive opportunity here to get into that space and leverage it if you know how to. The next kind of freelance would be the asset one. There are obvious examples like Uber. You need vehicles in order to run Uber. Airbnb, you need properties. Those are all part of the gig economy. The other ones are open airplane. You can rent airplanes. Parking Panda. You can rent parking from people who own space, especially in the States where parking is a problem. There's a big one that's recently been sold called TaskRabbit. Internationally, there's one called Dolly, which is basically it's an Uber for house moving. So you can literally just, on your phone, book a truck, picks up your stuff and moves it, versus the way it works in this country, which is a lot slower. The one that I'm the most fascinated about is the co-working space. So not a big thing in this country, although we're kind of sitting in a co-working space here. It hasn't taken off in the way it has in the rest of the world. That 46% of the estimated 19,000 spaces are growing the number of people year on year and intend to grow their space year on year. So the number of places are growing, the number of members are growing, and the size of their organizations are growing. Who's filling the space? The freelance market, predominantly. Another good example is that there's a business called Automatic with 2 C's that own WordPress. We all know WordPress, okay? One of the greatest platforms on the planet. They've scrapped offices globally. They've worked out that they can save money and be more productive using remote workspaces and freelancers. IBM, massive corporates, ditching the office space globally. Locally, ABSA, FlexiTime, FlexiSpace, ditching the office space locally. Freelancers want to be nomadic. They want to live around the world. They want to meet cool people, do cool stuff, work at the beach. So there are loads and loads of platforms and amazing websites where you can join a nomadic tribe for a period of time. You can buy a month package. A great one is Be Unsettled. So you can literally go, I want to go work in Bali for a month. They set you up with a room. They set you up with internet. They set you up with 10 coffee shops where you have free access to lunch, dinners, and networks. And if you can literally get on a plane for a small amount of money, probably less than you're paying rent in Johannesburg for a small flat, and go live somewhere really cool, drink coconuts, and work all day, okay? As long as you can do that. So it's a massive, massive drive around the world. Locally, I've got a couple of clients that have joined Be Unsettled and have done trips all over the world. And what's amazing about that is not only are they having a great time, but they're networking with people who have a similar mind around the world. And they're finding VC money, they're finding developers, they're finding creatives, they're finding business consultants, all kinds of interesting people, which they're building a global network. So now, all of a sudden, when you are looking for someone to do work internationally, you have a network you can tap into. No longer just who do I know in the room here. WeWork is the single biggest shared office space in the world. They currently have offices in about 26 countries. They are the single biggest landlord on the island of Manhattan in New York. Okay? Not landlord, tenant, sorry. They occupy the most amount of space. But what they've smartly done is they've gone to guys like IBM globally and said, wherever there's an IBM office, there'll be a WeWork office. You don't need an office anymore. We will have the right internet and the right security around your internet, so your staff, when they fly across the world, can walk into an office anywhere in the world, tap into our network, and only pay for the days they use. You don't have to pay for the big overhead of having offices all over the world. This business is worth about 20 billion US dollars. One of the biggest VCs in the world is a company called SoftBank in Japan. Just put another $4.4 billion into this business. But what's amazing about this business is it started off as a co-working space. Hot desk, coffee, internet. And they realized they can't compete in that because everyone's cheaper than them. Everyone can offer the same thing. So what they've now done is they've started offering free space with a subscription. The subscription gets you things like medical aid, car insurance, network, all the fun things you need. You want access to a banker, to a lawyer, to an accountant. We'll give that to you as part of the WeWork community, and the space is free. So what they're doing is they're making it super sticky. It's become a fintech business. They're making money on selling product, not selling space. Another great example, and if you ever get a chance, you should go visit, is Station F in Paris. They took one of the biggest old train stations and converted it into a space. It's 34,000 square meters. I don't know if you understand how big that is. It is massive, okay? There are 1,000 small technology businesses in the space and over 3,000 freelancers renting space in here. They have a community, okay? There's a joke about the tennis court, but there are ping pong tables, there's a bunch of community around there. And what's happening is all these independents are starting to become one, and they start working together. And because they're becoming one, they can start competing with larger agencies, where the one-man show can't do that, but 10 people together working smartly can. So it's becoming more and more sticky. The point being here, it's not a frozen yogurt fad. This is happening. It's a real thing. It's not going away in a rush. Not boobs. Not a bad boob job. Okay. So what I want to talk about here is that the old way of agencies working and the new way of agencies working. The old way was 85% permanent staff and 15% freelancers. The new model is 15% permanent staff and 85% freelancers. The 15% are sales, account management, and project management. The creative or the output of the business, we don't want to own internally anymore. We can freelance. We can do that more effectively. We can do that cheaper. Now, freelancers per hour charge more than employees charge per hour, except that freelancers bill for the hours they work. Employees bill for about 130 hours of productive hours a month, but you pay them for about 195 hours, 8 to 5. So you're only getting 2/3 of the hours out of an employee, billable hours, where you're getting 100% of the hours out of a freelancer. Plus, freelancers don't cost you leave, bonus, recruitment, desk, chair, office, laptop, software, coffee, toilet paper, and headache, okay? Generally, okay? So over the lifetime of a business, using a freelancer that's more expensive per hour is actually about 2/3 the cost of employing a permanent person. And once the agencies have started realizing this, they're realizing we can have a smaller space, we can have the best talent possibly globally. Why would we employ staff and have the headache? The circle, it's a perpetuating circle of demand. As people leave agencies, the demand for more freelancers becomes more prevalent. The staff who are remaining can see that the freelancers are enjoying their lives and more money, and they leave. And that's becoming more and more of a cycle. So you'll find that within agencies, suddenly when a lot of freelancers are being used, their entire business gets disrupted, and they just end up using freelancers, and it actually makes more money. Platforms. So there are literally thousands of platforms to find work as a freelancer. The biggest one being WeWork globally. There are 12 million registered freelancers on the site. There are 5 million clients, people paying freelance on the site. Last year, there were 3 million jobs posted on the site. They did $1 billion revenue last year. It's a growing, and that's just one platform. It's the biggest, but there are multiple. Upwork is generally focused around creative, like freelancer.com or Fiverr with 2 R's, but there are now multiple ones focusing on different industries. So if you're looking for lawyers, there's an Upwork for lawyers. I don't know what they're called, okay? 28 billion euros in 2015, double that of 2014 in terms of money being spent on platforms. 28 billion 2015, 80 billion 2016. And according to PwC, a consultancy, they reckon it's going to be worth $570 billion euros in the next couple of years. The problem is that employers are talking about freelancers, but they're not doing it. So Work is a platform predominantly aimed at females as well, women in the workplace. And they did a study that said that 69% of employers agree we should be using female freelancers in the space, but only 19% of them are actually doing it. A local example is Flexi. It used to be called Flexi People. It's now called Flexi Force. It's an amazing place for you to put your profile on. It's not a typical spam. They vet you, you get interviewed, and the way they work is they create teams. So if you, instead of using I just need a freelancer, you can buy a freelancer, but actually when you're looking for an art and copy and a director and a web and you want a complete team as a business, you go to Flexi, they set you up, you rank and rate, keep them, and you keep them as an on-demand workforce. So it's no longer just the one person. You can literally go, I want a project manager, I want an MD, I want a creative, I want a salesperson, I want all these people across multiple industries or multiple verticals within the industry, and you can group them together and you can build your own agency on a platform like this. So again, if you're competing with a smaller agency, if you're looking for a 5 or 10 man agency, use them. Way cheaper, one point of contact, better than freelancers. So there are a few main drawbacks as to why guys are not using platforms. The first one is people are unaware of who's responsible if a problem arises. Is it the freelancer or is it the platform? The next one is there's a lack of trust for internet transactions. People are still scared in this country to swipe their card. People are still scared to give their details over the phone. Who am I speaking to? Are you a real business? The last one is there's a lack of trust between the seller and the buyer. We don't trust each other. We don't know who we're dealing with. How do I know? If I go to Ogilvy, I know I'm dealing with Ogilvy. If I'm dealing with freelancers, who am I really dealing with? Ultimately, those people have come out of Ogilvy. It's the same talent pool. So the answer to me would be build your own digital trust. So which means build your own profile online. So when I go across and find you as a freelancer, I want to see that you are a real freelancer, that you are running a business, that you have a website, that you have a blog, that you have social media channels, that you have testimonials and referrals. Build your own trust. Within organizations, there are things like organograms. Okay? Organograms is generally like this: the boss, the two managers, and people doing it. That's the agency space. So it's worked for a very long time. We can talk about the pros and cons of having this kind of structure. But the reality is, as a freelancer, what does your organogram look like? What does your network look like? Because to get real work, you cannot go, hi, I'm a designer or I'm an account manager and get real work as a freelancer. But if you can put together a group of people together and act like a small business, you can take on the big guys. Again, create an on-demand team. This is the part I want to talk about in terms of learning and understanding. So this is my punt. So I wrote a book called What the Freelance. It's a mini MBA for digital and creative freelancers. But the point being here is get yourself educated. Okay, the fact that you've done a skill, you went to Vega and became a strategist or a designer or whatever that you've learned is great. But you're now running a small business. You need to know how to run a business in order to be a successful freelancer. You need skills outside of the skills you think you have at the moment. When we interviewed those 64 local agency heads, the single biggest problem they found was freelancers don't treat us like clients. They don't treat us like they're running a business. So again, get yourself educated, understand how to run a business. If you're a freelancer, be compliant with SARS. Make sure that when they ask you what your job description is, put there freelancer, not unemployed. They've got to start working out how to create a database around the freelance movement in this country. So make sure you're VAT registered. Make sure that you're compliant with SARS on all levels. The government here is incredibly slow, but the internet is fast. So if the government doesn't know how to classify you and doesn't know how to tax you, not your problem as far as I'm concerned, okay? Go ahead, start billing and start making money the way you believe you should, okay? So again, because if you're a freelancer in this country, you're technically unemployed, and that's not correct. You can make way more money being a freelancer than you would have been employed. This is my friend Hayley. So Hayley worked at a business which is now called Wonderman, used to be called Aqua. She's a strategist. She was there for quite a few years and she was quite senior. She left Wonderman to go freelance. And within 3 months was making almost twice as much money for half as amount of time doing what she was doing. She then went to go, I would like to buy a flat. Went to the bank. And the bank went, I'm sorry, you're unemployed. Where are your payslips? And she's like, no, you don't understand. I'm self-employed and I'm doing okay. I have real clients. I have SLAs and contracts in place. They were like, you're unemployed. She had to go back to her employer to work there for 3 months to get 3 payslips at a lower rate so she could get a bond. And then she left them and carried on freelancing, okay? But the fact is the system in this country is broken. They're not recognizing it. So there's a real requirement to recognize freelancers as a real employment profile. Again, get this, FFS, for fuck's sakes, okay? Please act like a business, number 1. Number 2, have a sales strategy. For fuck's sakes, understand that you're not going to get work. It's not going to just land on you. You have to know how to go out there and get the work. As a freelancer, make sure that you've got rock solid agreements in place. Okay? You need to make sure that you have a contract with the people who are paying you in the same way that they do with their clients. Do you want to know Gary Vaynerchuk? Okay? Love him or hate him? Go follow him. He's quite a smart guy, maybe. But he built a massive business, got a 1,000-man agency in New York called VaynerMedia, and he's a big investor. He was quoted as saying, it's never been easier to start a business, but it's never been easier to fail in business. And the reason he believes it's easier to start a business now is that the things that you needed 15 years ago to start a business, which were impossible to get your hands on, are now free or cheap. Those are the tools. Customer relationship management software, accounting software, your email, your calendar, your chats, your social media and media in general, or your newsletter, all your project management tools, all the surveys, all your task management, all your timekeeping, all that is basically free or negligible in terms of running a business. Where historically, if you needed these things, it was impossible to find or to produce. They were expensive. You had to go to someone to help you do it. It's free. You have a laptop, you have internet, you can get these things online. There's no more excuse why you can't start a freelance business or a business in general. And again, the most important thing is you can own your own media. You don't need, as a small business, to pay someone else to market your business anymore. You all have phones, you all have laptops, you all have internet accessibility to some degree. All these things are free. Go out and create the content. Do you all know what the 1-9-90 rule is? 1% create, 9% distribute, and 90% consume content. Okay? Become the 1%. Make sure that every single thing you do, you're posting content and becoming relevant to the market. Don't be the person that distributes someone else's content, and don't be a consumer. Make sure that you are producing content all the time. There are 6 things that encompass the old method of employment. The 6 Ps. So what was the product? What was the people? What was the process? What were the policies and guidelines? What was the POP, promise of payment? And what was the protection of employment? Now, as a freelancer, there's no POP, there's no promise of payment, because if you don't work, you don't get paid, and there's zero protection, which means that there's no safety net. So let's go back to my grandfather, okay? He had savings, there was a provident, there was a pension, there were all those things that were put together to protect employment. When you go on your own, those things are gone. You need to make sure that you are saving and planning for your one-day retirement. So those things are up to you. Be educated in terms of how you save money. There's obvious risks. You're going to work harder as a freelancer than you are as an employed person, for sure. Make no bones about it. The freedom you think you're going to get is a perceived freedom. It's the option of choice of not working today. But you're going to work harder to make money, absolutely. But the risks are very simple. High levels of stress and fatigue, because you're always looking for the next job. Isolation. You may end up working on your own and not having interaction with people, and that's a real problem. Muscle and back problems. Why? We do this all day long, trust me. Addiction to tech, because what are you doing? You're spending your whole day looking in front of a screen, and not that we aren't already, but now this is your business potentially. You're going to be addicted to your email. Information overload is a big one, because before you were only dealing with someone saying, please do this piece of work. Now you're chasing accounts. Now you're doing tax. Now you're looking after clients. Potentially you're outsourcing that people are managing that discussion. You're managing your bank accounts. You're managing all these things, which you weren't before. A lot of information to take in. This one's a big one. Psychological morbidity. Okay? You're going to go slightly nuts, which is incredibly, incredibly scary. Okay? Because the fact is you're always under stress, because there's no guaranteed paycheck end of the month. You've got to go out there and find the work. Whether you're a small business owner or a freelancer, same thing. Understand that you can go slightly crazy if you're not actually successful. And not everyone's built to be a business owner or a freelancer. Some of you should go back into the workplace. Simon Dingle, very smart guy, just built a blockchain hedge fund, if you know what that is, because I don't. And he believes that in a short period of time, all information workers will be freelancers. And I agree. If you can sell time and your brain and your skill on a computer, why are you working for somebody else? And that's becoming very, very transparent. So let's remember, there are big sharks out there eating the small sharks all the time, or eating the small fish. But if we act like a business, we can eat those sharks, okay? And I believe the freelancers, which are all those little fish, are going to eat WPP alive. Okay, I really do. It's a massive problem. They don't know how to get around it. There is no quick fix solution. Their staff are leaving to become their opposition. A lady, a very smart lady, should go follow her, called Mrs. Wolf. She runs a consultancy here called Mrs. Wolf. Stole this off my book. Freelance taking over the world, one resignation at a time. Okay. So that's my talk for now. Any ideas of what I should call the talk?
Be brave.
Be brave.
For fuck's sake.
For fuck's sakes. Good stuff. All right, thank you very much. We can do Q&As.